Well, if you are just joining us, thank you so much for being here. We're going to get started in about 90 seconds. And we're just sitting here talking about some things we like to do outside of talking about artificial intelligence. So if you're just joining us, please drop in the chat where you're coming in from. I am in Cleveland, Ohio. And Emmy, you are in San Francisco.
That's correct.
It's amazing. So yeah, it's an early morning there for you. And I am ready I'll be eating after this one.
So it was an early morning.
Right, exactly. We're going to start pretty close to the top of the hour because this is our biggest registration for any of our webinars we've ever had, for any of our sponsor webinars. So this is really exciting. Hot topic.
Everyone's ready to hear it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. All right, I'm going to get started. We have a few minutes of introduction, so I just want to dive in so we have time for everyone's questions and Emmy's amazing presentation. So if you want to just jump to the next slide. We are here today with Optimizely, but real quickly, I want to talk about the Marketing AI Institute. Our goal is really to make AI approachable and actionable for marketers and business leaders. We've been doing this now for 8 years. So we are a media company, events company, and education media. We have all the media things: blog posts, webinars, research, ebooks, white papers, our podcast, the AI show. If you have not looked for that, look for the Artificial Intelligence Show in your favorite podcast app. Paul and Mike wrote a book. We've got an amazing community that Noah, Claire, and I are in every single day. We've got a Tuesday newsletter. From an event standpoint, we have our big event, MACON, coming up in September. I'll talk about in a second. We've got some great virtual summits, including our AI for Writer Summit, which happened in March, our AI for Agency Summit happening in fourth quarter, and our AI for B2B Summit coming up in June. And then education, we have lots of different things, whether you are ready to just get an intro. We've got a free course we do every month that Paul and I do. Piloting AI and scaling AI are 8-hour courses. And then we've got an ongoing AI for Mastery membership. And then consulting and workshops and speaking. If you're ever at events, you might have seen someone from our team there. So real quickly, as I mentioned, our AI Academy for Marketers, our AI Mastery membership includes an ongoing monthly access to our team. Piloting and scaling AI are right there. So if you're interested in more, you can dig into those, and Claire can drop some links into the chat in a little bit. Next, we have MACON coming up in September, which I alluded to briefly. It's our 5th annual MACON. So we were talking about marketing AI a long time ago. Our 5th event is this September. If you're interested, go to macon.ai, and webinar 100 will save you $100. And lastly, our next big thing outside of just some of these great webinars we have with some of our great partners is our AI for B2B Marketers Summit, which is taking place on June 6th. It's a free virtual event. There are some paid options if you want, but there is a free pass to attend the live event that day. We're touching on some really, really important things in the world of AI when it affects B2B marketers. Here are some great sessions that you can see here. So visit our website for more on that. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Emmy, to talk about this. And I'm going to stay on camera just so we can chit chat a little bit, but it's all ready for you.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. I'm glad we had such a great turnout for this topic. And I'm excited to talk to you about AI. So as we all know, AI can be overwhelming, especially for a marketer. Marketers are tasked with producing rich content and campaigns, engaging emails, high-performing ads, trendy social posts, and so much more, and doing it all quickly without sacrificing quality. Now we're adding AI to the mix, and it kind of takes overwhelming to the next level. And while it can be overwhelming, it's a hot topic for a reason. Recent studies have really shown that you can be significantly more productive when you're bringing AI to the mix, and you can also be a lot faster with your different tasks. So we all know by now that AI can help improve efficiency in how we work as marketers, both from the ideating and sparking creativity when creating content to automating what can otherwise be some manual processes. These are just kind of some quick, insights from business leaders. In a 2023 report by HubSpot and 10Web, the survey data collected from 1,300 global marketing, SEO, sales, and service professionals, and AI technology and business, 68% of marketing leaders that are at direct level and above share that their company completely implemented AI and automation, the business would grow unprecedentedly. So we're just really seeing that with all of the AI capabilities we have, we know that there are ways for us to really scale our businesses in ways that we haven't done before. And now it's really about finding out where those areas are and how we hone in on the right processes to implement AI into to ensure that we're implementing AI without allowing our brand and our marketing to become robotic or look like everyone else's. So this is where we start to really talk about what are some of the pitfalls to a haphazard approach with AI. The reality is everyone has access to all these tools, right? So there's no secret sauce. You're not the first one in anymore. And with that, you can see that when you rely too much on AI, you can really start to actually create a poor digital experience. You can have too many point solutions. I think in the MarTech world, we probably are very familiar with what it's like to have too many solutions and what that can do, both just in a high total cost of ownership, but also in overwhelming your marketers and having them not understand what to use, where, or for what. And then the brand damage. So the reality is your brand cannot be policed or owned by AI. That's something that you really need to create and conceptualize within your team and really own. And then you need to teach your AI to use your brand appropriately to ensure that you're not creating that poor digital experience. So there's kind of a few things that AI can do and what it still can't do, right? So AI is really wonderful for sparking that creativity and ideation, getting over that blank page phobia, right? I know that's something that I really struggle with. I have to write something and I just don't know where to start. AI can be such a wonderful tool for this. It can also really help provide predictive analytics data, automate some time consuming tasks, process and analyze vast amounts of data. But what it really can't do, at least not yet, is create that on brand content without the humans getting involved and intervening. It can't strategize, it can't make your decisions for you. It can't execute your long term brand or build genuine relationships with your customers and your communities. So, how do we embrace AI without losing that human touch? AI offers the new and improved method of working more efficiently, but we do have to proceed with caution. Uh, we're in a make or break era for brands. No one wants to read robotic content that lacks unique perspective. And that's where it's really important that if AI is the path forward in the name of productivity, we need to utilize the technology to lay down the foundation, but then build upon it with our brand story. This way, you can drive efficiency, but still produce the content your audience loves. Um, I think there's also just a really big important visibility angle here. Something that we'll do at Optimizely is if we're using AI to help us generate our content, we'll say that. It'll be in the byline, right? Written by Shafkat Islam, our CMO, with the help of Opal AI. Opal is our AI. You'll learn more about that in a little bit. But I think that that visibility, or if it's a chatbot, letting people know that they're interacting with something that has had an AI influence helps create that um, brand affinity and also the transparency that your audience wants to see.
Have you gotten feedback from any of your customers when they see things like that?
And, I don't think that we've gotten direct feedback about it, but I know personally, like if I'm on a chat bot, I always want to know, like, when am I talking to a real person versus when is this AI helping me? Um, because I know then if I need to talk to it in a certain way, right? I'm going to speak to an AI bot differently than I'll speak to a human representative because I know what it's looking for in that conversation.
Right. Absolutely.
So here, how to thoughtfully use AI. We are marketing to other humans after all. So be transparent about the uses of AI in marketing processes, including your data collection, analysis, decision making. Provide explanations of how the AI algorithms work and how they'll benefit customers. That way, you're building trust and confidence in your brand. Require that human oversight and intervention. While AI can automate many marketing tasks, human oversight is essential to ensure the accuracy, fairness, and ethical considerations. Incorporate mechanisms for human review and intervention when necessary, especially in sensitive or complex situations. And then lastly, personalize with empathy. Use AI to personalize marketing messages, but ensure that you still have that human touch that's respectful, acknowledges your customers' privacies and boundaries. So now let's talk about the theme of personalization. So, 4 ways to incorporate AI to enhance personalization efforts. And I'm going to get into a really specific example of this later on. But just to start out, predictive analytics and lead scoring, dynamic ad targeting, tailored support, and content variation generation. Um, Personalization, I feel like, has been a big topic for a long time in marketing, right? We have a lot of tools out there that help you personalize your message. But where I've always struggled with personalization as a marketer, I've been really focused on ABM for a long time in my career, is how do you then personalize at scale, right? Like, it's wonderful to be able to create a personalized message, but if I have 10 different industries, I still need to create that content for each one of those personalized stories. Um, so I think that's really an important area that we need to lean on. Here, we're talking a little bit about, if we look at predictive analytics and lead scoring, AI can segment existing accounts through lead scoring models, which predict the likelihood of an account's interest or readiness to buy based off of their historical data or behavior patterns. In dynamic ad targeting, AI can enable dynamic ad targets by adjusting the content and timing based on the real time data, improving that customer experience. AI can automate and personalize interactions with customers, providing them with relevant information and support. And then content variation generation. We'll talk about this a little bit more later too, but really generating the variations of content for your ads and ABM campaigns with altered messaging per buyer persona and stage, um, really allowing you to scale that to a much broader audience than you would have been historically.
And I think the through line that I see there is that you're not saying use this. There's so many more things AI is good for than writing content. So many people on this webinar right now love writing. And
Mhm.
you're talking about taking your amazing writing and getting it into the right people at the right time. And I think that's such a critical element to it because the best thing can be written, but if people don't see it or it doesn't affect, it's not right for them at that moment, then it really makes a big difference.
Exactly. And I think, generative AI is probably one of the most obvious, right? The one that most people are using right now when we think about AI. But there's really so much more to it than generative AI. And to some degree, like, creating content is almost one of AI's weaker skills. It's fully capable of doing it, and it's a great tool for that. But when you really get deeper, that's when you start to see the real impact that AI can make in your journeys, in the entire experience, even outside of that generation aspect.
Absolutely.
So, if done right, while maintaining the human centric approach, we can really stand to make a huge improvement in the way we execute personalization, from more targeted and effective marketing efforts, delivering the right message at the right time to capture our audience's attention and intent to buy, improve customer experiences with more personalized interaction and support, and then truly scalable ABM and personalization efforts without needing to scale those resources. So that's a really big one. And that's the example I'm going to really hone in on a little bit later. So, benefiting without compromising the brand. AI can significantly enhance your ABM and personalization efforts, but we still need to maintain that balance between automation and human insight. So, build the repeatable workflows, tried and tested. They require human intervention. Build that human intervention into your workflow. Build those human approval stages to ensure that it doesn't just start to get overlooked. Um, Always tweak the AI generated content, infuse it with your brand's personality and messaging. Make sure you're reading through that. Have referenceable guidelines. I think this is a really big one. As AI kind of came to teams all at once really fast, everyone just started using it. But teams didn't necessarily have guidelines on how or when they were supposed to use it or how they're infusing specific markers into the content that's being created. And then take it slow, right? Use AI tools that are purpose built for marketers, find the right ones, try to avoid um, tools that have a lot of AI washing, right? Like every tool has AI now, but is it a tool that actually needs AI? Or is it an AI tool that's literally built to be an AI tool? Or is it tools that are just being plugged in so that a company can say they use AI? Be a discerning buyer in those regards. So, this is how we at Optimizely are putting AI into practice with the human touch. So, you can really see it's AI accelerated workflows through planning and ideation, content creation, asset storage, personalization, experimentation, SDR outreach, and customer marketing. And this is what that looks like for Optimizely's platform. So, this is the different stages of our Optimizely one offering that we have at Optimizely, which really is our entire product suite put together. All of these little dots around the circle, that's where Opal, our AI, is infused into our products. So it's really everywhere from the chat, the generative copy, to image tagging, creating a smart focal point. Is in yellow is what's coming soon. So those automated translations, search. And then as we get more into the personalization and experiment side of things, you can start to see multi-armed bandits, stats accelerators, content recommendations, and some more analytics driven AI areas that we're bringing this into focus. And actually, I'm going to go back really fast just to talk about what this is built on. Optimizely's AI is built through strategic relationships with Google and Microsoft. So we really say, we're on the shoulders of the giants. That way, we can provide unparalleled access to resources, both from the R&D powerhouses, translating to co-ideation, engineering support, as well as the early access to cutting edge capabilities. So this way, we can really push the boundaries of AI for digital experience in a safe and responsible manner. So, all of Opal is built off of Google and Microsoft's platforms. All right. So, this is how we're really using it on a day to day. This is that planning and ideation, right? So, ChatGPT or Opal for campaign and content briefs. This is where you can start to put together ideation. You can see that we have tone of voice elements in here. So here we can say, for this, we're going to put it in our brand tone of voice of our CEO, Alex. We have another drop down for Schaff. They write differently, they speak differently. We've infused their different brand personalities into the tool so that someone who's creating this content can put those different elements directly in. But this is kind of your tried and true. Everyone's kind of used to what this looks like right now.
Is there any way that you could take Alex's voice versus Schaff's voice and make it align with Optimizely's voice?
Yeah. So that would be another drop down, right? Just our overall brand versus an individual sort of brand voice. And we would create all those different models for the tool. Next is the content creation again. So this is Opal. We also have bring your own AI. So if you're using a generative AI platform like Writer, Jasper, Bard, those can all be integrated with our tool. So if you're creating your own model in one of those tools, that can be directly integrated into our CMP to really build that content creation. I want to talk next about the framework of how we recommend talking to your AI. So, this is really elevating your generative AI capabilities through the RACE framework. This is how we recommend prompting one of these tools. Um, RACE stands for role, action, context, and execute. So, what this does is it evokes a greater specificity and detail from the user, which in turn provides the generative model with more direction and material to derive its response. So what research has really shown that you can drive these kind of generalist agents like ChatGPT 4 to outperform specialized models when you use these robust prompts. Um, what you're trying to build is in context learning and a self generating chain of thought within the tool. So the in-context learning is providing accurate examples of questions being answered thoroughly, defining criteria to execute prior to asking for that output. So the role, what we're looking for is clearly defining the role of the persona the AI agent should assume when providing the output, outline their expertise and their purpose. The action is what's the task you want the agent to complete? What's the desired outcome? Context. This one's really important, right? You need to provide the tool with the context to really create that output. So providing the relative context and background information so that it can understand your problem. And then lastly, the execute. So clearly instruct the AI on steps and what the output should look like. Uh, what this looks like kind of in practice, I apologize. There are a couple of eye charts coming up. Feel free to look at these when we send the slides out later. But you can see we're really saying, okay, in this example, I'm an experienced product marketer. I have expertise in drone-based I can't even say that word. So it's not me, clearly. Data analytics. I want to create a high-level message of architecture for product Z. Here, I'm going to provide the context. What is product Z? And then lastly, the execute. So you can see I'm giving it a really clear list of the structure I want it to produce. So the problem statement, core message, positioning statement, benefits. This is a basic example, but it really helps you explain how you can feed the prompt to get the best output right away rather than having to sort of get something and then rework it and get something and rework it. You can get a better output through this model.
I mean, it's basic, but it's not that basic. Like, it's a pretty good, you're asking a lot of things and you know what you want your output to be. You just need help getting there. So I am not really big at like taking other people's prompts and making them my own or using them as templates. But when you see what you're trying to achieve here and you really dive into this, it's a really, really good format to follow, and just keep iterating and iterating and iterating on it.
Exactly. And so from there, what you can do is you can create a buildable model. And so what you see us doing here is we're basically asking, hey, Gen AI, write my brand rules for me, right? Like, what's the style and copy tone? Providing context. And then you can start to copy and paste what you've derived from previous steps to create an even bigger model here. What we actually have here at Optimizely is we have this master spreadsheet that has kind of the different prompts and the different kind of fill-ins that you get so that you can continue to build on this to create all of our personalized ABM specific content. So what we can do is, as an example, let's say I want to market our Optimizely One product to marketers in airlines. Now I can say, okay, I'm going to create landing page copy for airlines, and this is targeting marketing leaders. And I can then feed in our various case studies that we have from other airlines into the prompt as well. I can feed in the different data points we have from different airlines into the prompt as well, and then have it derive a specific story that we've already written, some content that we already have that exists, and rework it for this new buyer persona in this specific industry. So rather than creating from scratch content for this persona, I'm taking existing content, taking existing case studies, existing data points, existing buyer personas, feeding it all into the model and having the model put that together for me. And then the human will review. But think about how much faster that is to just have a human review that content rather than having to have this human create brand new content for this specific buyer and then scale that to 10, 20 different industries as your ABM process grows. So it can really become really powerful when you start to allow the model to be taught and to build on your existing content.
And I think that's a key point because a lot of us, when we start working with some of these tools, we're like, okay, put in your brand voice. And you're like, do I even know my brand voice? So instead of you having, even though you do, but now you have to verbalize it, so put it on paper. Let these tools help you find that. And when it gives you the output, you're like, okay, it's close. I'm going to adjust this ever so slightly, but you're not starting from scratch. The tool's helping you create this, then you can use that to do even more.
Exactly. And once you create that model, you can then say, okay, now I've got this landing page copy. What's the email copy? What's the next bit? So as you've taught it, then you can really kind of get the next piece of your puzzle, the next piece of your puzzle, the next piece of your puzzle, all building on this content that you fed into the system, um, really allowing you to scale in a way that I don't think we've been able to do historically, especially with ABM. When I was in my last role at ABM, I started out as an individual contributor, built out the ABM model, and then we grew that to a team of 10. But we grew it to a team of 10 because that was what we needed to do to scale. To hit more industries and more buyers, we needed more people. That was the only way we could get there. You still need people. We don't want to overwhelm our teams, obviously. But now each person isn't having to build all of those stories from scratch. One person or a few people can really own a much broader audience, now that you have these tools to help with that content creation. All right. Next up, I'm going to talk about asset storage. So this is sort of moving a little bit away from that generative AI area for a little bit. Optimizely has a dam. It lives in our CMP product. And I don't know if anyone else here has ever had the task of, tagging all of your images or losing tags and having to retag it, or the frustration of having to figure out the exact right word to get the right images to populate when you're searching. But this is a really cool area that I think AI can take so much manual, kind of mundane task and fix it, right? Really reinvent how we do that. So auto tagging is one area where I don't have to think about making sure I use the exact right word anymore, or I don't have to think about, okay, how would someone else have tagged this image? I can really kind of provide what I'm looking for and assume that the auto tagging is taking care of that. Another great example here is renditions for smart focal point for automated asset management. So in the past, we have one image that we want to use in our social posts. We want to use it in our emails. We want to use it on our landing page. Those are all going to be differently cropped, right? Those are all going to be different sizes. In the past, you have to send this image to your designers. They have to crop it all appropriately. It's a pretty mundane task for a designer. Smart focal point can actually assume the right place for this image to be focused in on and crop it all those different ways for you. So you no longer have to send this really manual task to your designers, but you can say, this is my image, these are the crops, and it understands the right area to focus in on that image. So from an asset management standpoint, these are some really interesting non-generative AI use cases to save a lot of manual time in mundane tasks.
Yeah, when I was working with this was like 10 years ago, but working with a dam and we were putting all these things in there, and it was like pretty significant training with our team with onboarding and naming conventions. And if one person did it wrong, it messed up the whole entire thing. So by taking that out of the human error or laziness or whatever you want to call it, and having something that is automated, that's dreamy.
Exactly, exactly. So it can be really powerful. Next up on personalization. So, we think back about that race model. We think about it back about that example I gave. Now, think about how you can start to use that in your experimentation, right? Or with your data platform. What we're looking at here is the different variations. So, on top of creating all that different content, now you can even test that different content. You can ask the tool to create, what are the different variances that I want to test of this headline, right? AI gave me this headline. I think it's nice, but I want to test 3 headlines. So here we can say, okay, give me 2 more variations of this. I talked a little bit also about getting to stat significance faster by making sure AI can really push to the right message for the right people. So a lot of really powerful use cases here. And I think another one is also, let's see if it's on my next slide or on this one. Here we go. So strategy bot within app guidance on what experiments to run and how to measure them. So when you've been doing experimentation for a long time, you probably get to the point where you're like, I feel like I've tested everything. I've tried everything. I'm out of ideas, right? It's almost going back to that blank page phobia that we get sometime with content creation. But I've done so much. I've been doing this for so long. AI can now provide you with new examples or new ideas of suggestions on what you should text next or what you should measure, right? So maybe you haven't thought before to, I don't know, move your checkout button from over here to over here, right? The app can now start to give you new suggestions, and it can also give you examples of how to test them and why. All right. SDR outreach. This is another generative topic that we have, but I think a really powerful one. Um, this is an example of probably where you're getting to overwhelm of different provider options and too many tools getting into the picture. Here at Optimizely, we have OptiGPT, Lavender AI, Sixth Sense Conversational AI, CMPs, Scribe by Lead IQ. Like there are so many tools that can help with your SDR outreach. But now it's really making sure that we're using it in the right way. I think that SDR outreach is another great example of when to use generative AI because it is an area where we see the need for so much new copy all the time, right? Like every event we do has different outreach. Every campaign we run has different outreach. Every webinar, every ad, right? Like it's all different. So you get to the point where you have hundreds upon hundreds of different sequences that your SDRs are using. But with this, you can really start to make sure that it's personalized in the right way, written well. Here at Optimizely, we lean on all of our marketers to write the follow-up for their SDRs. So our event marketers write their events follow-up. Our campaign marketers write the follow-up for ads or campaigns or webinars that they're running. That's a lot of different writers creating content for the same people. And when we go back to that race model, everyone doesn't write the same way. But now we can provide what's the tone of voice that we as Optimizely want to exude for our SDRs. We can provide that to all of our marketers so that as they are writing their SDR outreach, they can keep that in mind. They can plug that into the different tool that they're using and ensure that the right voice is going across all of these different marketers writing. It also helps us infuse all of our different products. Here at Optimizely, we're a multi-product company. We have, three main solutions with a number of products in all of those. So that means we create a lot of variations for every single campaign. AI is really powerful in enabling us to create those sequences, create all those different variances, but ensure that the right tone of voice is still there and that we're creating good quality content for our SDRs, that it doesn't become robotic or mundane, even when we're using these tools. All right. This customer marketing example is one of my favorites. So here at Optimizely, what we've done is we've actually created a customer stories database. So pre-AI, what the use case looked like was we have some different Teams channels. An AE would reach out and say, hey, does anyone have an experimentation customer in airlines that I can use as a reference? 15 different people will go running off in 15 different directions trying to find the answer for this person, right? They're going to get all sorts of different answers. Different people are going to chime in. Now, what we've done is we've actually built a model where we've taught it all of our customer stories, all of our customer story databases from, our case studies that are live, our different data points, our G2 and trust radius reviews. All of those different components now live in one place. So an AE can come in and say, hey, what products does this company use? And AI can tell it, or they can say, what customers do we have using this set of our products in this industry with this buyer persona? And the tool can actually feed them that information in a way that doesn't go send 15 other people running off and provides a much more cohesive answer. So this is a really great example of non-generative AI that I think really focuses on where is something that has been disorganized or decentralized historically and provide one really cohesive area for everyone to focus in on as their go-to for these answers.
So talk a little bit about data and privacy, and if one of your customers uploads a bunch of their customer data in here, where does that go? Where does it train? Where does it stick around?
Yeah, so this all lives completely in our own large language model, right? So we've fed it this information, but this is only available to optimizers. And this is a model that we have taught. So we've taught this model based off of our customer data, all of that stuff. But no one else has access to this. So this isn't public. It's basically allowing them to, instead of going and searching all of the various tools that they have access to, search in one place. So this is an example of, you're not going to feed all of this information into a public version of ChatGPT, right? Like, you're going to use a specific tool to make sure that your privacy, your customer's privacy is all living in the right place. And that's using that judgment about when and where to use what tools. I think, I don't know if everyone else got this too. You know, we got the Copilot um, beta, not even a beta test, but our entire company is testing Copilot right now. And I think that's a really good example of, we taught Copilot. We linked Copilot to different databases that we have so that I can go into Copilot and I can ask it, help me find this document that I know exists somewhere, that someone either sent me in an email or a Teams or is somewhere on SharePoint, but I can't find it right now. It can find it because it's integrated into our databases. I can't go to my free version of ChatGPT and assume I'm going to get that information. So that's where using the different tools kind of for their strengths, I think, is also really important, and understanding the strengths of the different tools. So certain tools have integrations that make them much more powerful than others. All right. So main takeaway, AI should be your co-pilot. So AI is incredibly powerful for marketers. It is truly something that can save you incalculable amounts of time. It can help your team be more productive, but we have to use it thoughtfully. We have to ensure that we're building in those workflows that have that human touch. We need to build those processes for our teams so that they know how and when to use it. We need to build the guidelines for our teams so that they know, this is the brand voice I should be plugging in. This is the story I should be plugging in. We should be transparent with our end users. Let them know when they're using it, when they're interfacing with it, and choose tools that are really purpose built for your marketers. So ensure that the tools you're providing aren't tools that are AI washed, aren't tools that just make the most sense, generally speaking, but build ones that are actually for your marketers. And that way you'll get the best end results. So thank you for joining. We've got our website there, and you'll get this all afterwards. But now I'm excited to dive into some questions.
Yes, that was awesome. It just makes me think like, oh, we could use that. We could use that. There's just so many ways we can be using some of these tools to our advantage. And it really starts with identifying use cases where there are some challenges, things you've want to be been doing, but you can't do it because you haven't had the resources or the time or even the strategy behind it. So hopefully a lot of attendees got a lot out of this. So I'm going to jump in a few of my questions first,
Yeah.
since I have the mic. Um, building a culture of experimentation is challenging for some folks. A lot of people on here, we're excited. We're the ones in our organizations who want to do things like this. Like, what are some common barriers companies face when it comes to adopting this mindset, and what are some things that we can do as marketing leaders to overcome them?
Yeah, definitely. I think one is really showcasing examples, right? So everyone's going to use it a little bit differently, and providing forums where different team members can explain how they specifically are finding it the most useful in their roles. That will then allow other people to kind of take it on, and it'll really normalize and make it, like you said, kind of that culture, right? That culture of using AI, that culture of these different models. So an example of that is, well, we've been doing this Copilot test. We have office hours, we have different Teams channels where people can really share what they're finding the most valuable about it. So while I in marketing may find the generative AI capabilities really powerful, and that's somewhere where I am seeing a lot of use and using it on my day to day, our customer success team finds it really valuable in the transcription of their meeting notes, right? They have all their calls with their customers. They can keep that transcription on and then get those meeting notes and action items really delivered. It helps them stay more present in the meeting without having to focus on taking all of the notes. But then knowing that that information is captured for them in a really cohesive way. Another example for our customer marketing team, what used to be the process of having a call, listening back to that call and typing out the transcript, literally listening, pausing, typing, listening, pausing, typing. Think about how long that would take. Now you have that transcription that you just get auto generated for you. And then we can feed that transcript with this is the model for our case studies. This is an example of a good case study into the model and really create our case studies in a quarter of the time it used to take. So, those are a couple of examples that have come out of these learnings, right? These meetings that we have where people are able to showcase the different ways they're using AI. And then when you share that information, I'll be like, I didn't think about that. Or, oh, I could implement that into my role like this. And it enables everyone to think about it in new ways. Myself as an example, like I use Excel a lot. Like I need to be really data driven in my role, but I don't necessarily consider myself like an Excel wizard like some people. I'm always so impressed by some people. I'm like, how did you do that? But now with AI and Copilot, you can really become a lot more powerful. And that's another example of like non-generative AI. But I can now say to Copilot directly in my document, like, what's the formula to make these two columns be one? And it'll feed that out for me. Right. So I think sharing is a really big way to help build that culture in your companies, sharing the different ways you're using it. That also, I think it takes away concern about if people are like, "Am I doing this wrong? Am I doing this right or am I doing it wrong?" Right? If you're sharing the information, then people know that everyone's learning, and then you build that culture of experimenting, you build that culture of trying and learning together.
Absolutely. So more technically, more tactically, integrations become a huge part of this. Our tech stack can only be so big and before we start to, just be spread too thin and we're all these different tools doing these one things. Like how critical is it to integrate with other solutions for your CRM, your analytics, your CMS, and what should companies look for when they're thinking about integrations?
Yeah. I mean, with integrations, obviously privacy is gonna be a number one concern, right? You wanna make sure that the tools you're integrating with are top bar, that the privacy of your customer, your employee, et cetera, data is gonna be secure. Um, so I'd say that's number one. I think if you have, like IT governances that, really help with some of that process, that can be really important. I think also thinking about tools where you get more than one thing in the tool at a time. So, another Optimizely One plug, right? But Optimizely One is really looking to be like your marketing workspace. This is where you can do everything from your project management, your content creation, getting that onto your website, doing your experimentation, all in one place. Your DAM, it's all integrated in one. And the more you can find tools where you get more in one space, the more your tools are going to work better together. They're going to be more integrated. And that will really enable you to not have to worry about tools not talking to each other or tools needing to be set up in different ways to work properly. So, privacy, and I think where you can kind of combine your total cost of ownership into one tool versus five are some really great ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were talking about Alex and Shafa and your team, like learning how to train that data, what if you don't have a lot of data yet? How do you get that process started? Or if you do have a lot of data, like what does that look like?
I think for getting it started, first, I would say you probably have more data than you think, even if you haven't like officially written out brand voice or brand guidelines, right? You have their LinkedIn posts, you have your social media, and you can actually use the AI to create that for you, right? I can say, like, this is how this person talks, and I can feed it the various different examples and then ask it to feed me what that looks like. So I think that that's definitely one area is you have more than you think. And then the second is it's never too late to start building, right? You just have the conversation. What do you want your brand to be? Brands also evolve. The Optimizely brand is evolving, right? Like we've gone from, you know, pretty tame B2B messaging to really getting a lot more spicy in the past year, going a little bit um, more rogue with how we talk about our products. And so that's good too. And have those conversations. Like I was just at an MLT offsite a couple of weeks ago, and we were literally talking about our like spicy barometer for okay, our website should probably never be more than a spicy level of 2, but our out of home can be spicy level 5. So define like your different types of marketing and where you as a company feel comfortable having your brand be a little bit different in those different places, understanding your audiences. So, those are just conversations that you
Yep.
need to have and kind of agree on. And, another example that came out of this, which I thought was just a really wonderful analogy for marketing. When you send 100 people to an ice cream shop with 150 flavors and ask them all to pick one ice cream that they're all going to have, you're going to end up with vanilla. But you don't want your marketing to be vanilla. So you have to have some um, comfort with discomfort. You have to have some discomfort with knowing you're not going to please everyone and allowing that to be part of it. Because I think AI can get very vanilla if you lean on it too much without that human intervention, right? It's going to assume vanilla. So how can you take it to the next level and tell it, we're okay not being vanilla. We're okay being spicy level 3 or spicy level 5 for this. Um, so I think that's where that human touch really and that human intervention comes in is make your definitions and then put it in.
So when I was doing my channel plan for the company, our company, it was like we had an Excel spreadsheet and we had all of our channels here. And then we had different things like what's our tone, what's our voice, what's our frequency of posting, all those things. Like, can you use those? Do you do like your LinkedIn voice, your Facebook voice, your email voice? Do you build all of those? And then it just adapts to each of those things that you need? Or how does that work? Because my spreadsheet was just like a guide. We
Right.
never really took it against what we were doing other than reading them both.
Yeah. So I think you have that guide, that's your foundation. And then depending on if you're like really building your own large language model or if you're feeding it into like a more generic tool, if you're feeding it into your large language model, then you can create all of those as separate voices, create all of those as different kind of identifiers. If you're using a tool that's free or that you're not infusing with your own information, then you keep that spreadsheet and you create, the test line that you then put into your prompt. So, and this is the brand voice for this. And now you put that into your prompt. So I think depending on how deep you want to go into, are you building or are you trying to make the most out of kind of readily available tools? The the strategy changes a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So switching gears a little bit, I want to get through some of these questions for our attendees. Are there best practices on how long prompts should be? Do you have an opinion on that?
I do actually. So it does depend on the tool a little bit. ChatGPT can have very long prompts and it's not going to be a problem. I have noticed a little bit with Copilot, it'll get lost a little bit when your prompt starts to get really long. And I think there's also like some free versus paid, like free tools will only let you have like a word limit, but when you're paying, that normally goes away. Um, I think I wouldn't be too concerned about the length of your prompt. Sometimes if you're really kind of conversationally building in the prompt, it might start to get lost, but you can always reprompt it. So then you can say, go back to my original execute or go back to step 4 of this step if it starts to lose that model. So I don't think that I wouldn't say that there's a guideline on length, but really just kind of keeping in mind that you need to be involved in the process, that it is a conversation that you're having with the tool.
Right. So optimizing content is like as old as content itself, right? So like what has changed? What has AI done that has made optimization better, easier, faster, more efficient, more effective?
Oh man, I mean, so much. I think it really is that economies of scale, right, is what you can get out of AI that was harder before. So in the past, when you're trying to optimize um, your content, I mean, I think about like the old content strategies, everything had to be new. It was new, 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 every single time new. And now you're like, I have all this content that people have spent hours upon hours and upon hours of producing that we're saying is stale because it's been in existence, right? Now I think it's how can you start to leverage some of that old content if it's still accurate, if it's still correct for your brand and for your company, how can you leverage that and give it new zest, give it new life again? I think we hear or I read all the time about like how marketers are constantly being asked to do more with less. And I would say, I don't know, for me, it feels very true, right? Scaling, growing, always. But you're not getting more people, you're not getting more budget. And so these tools, I think, are really an avenue where you can take advantage of that to do more with less. But I would say we're still at like phase 2 of AI, right? Like phase 1 was ChatGPT, all of the image generators come to life, and everyone is just like jumping in and testing and joking around with what it can produce. Now we're to the point where people are starting to understand some really effective use cases, but there's going to be so much more. It's going to get so much more productive. It's going to get so much more um, tooled as we
Right.
move forward. I have very young kids, they're 3 and 1, but I'm thinking about like their school is going to be different, right? Like they're not going to be asked to go home and write a 4-page paper, double spaced. Like they'll just throw that into a generative AI tool. Like they're going to have to be taught differently based off of these new tools that are available. And what is that going to look like for them in 10, 15, 20 years? Because it's going to be very different than where we're at now at this very entry level stage to it being commonly available to everyone.
They're the better critical thinkers than we were for memorizing things like
We
that.
can hope.
I hope. Okay, so if I'm writing something, I'm writing a blog post, and then I'm writing some copy for something, and then I'm like, okay, let me see what a tool can do for me, and I'm A/B testing to see which one is performing better. A couple things I've talked about this before is like I have learned that whenever I try to sound different, I still kind of sound like me, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the AI might give me something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought about positioning it that way, and it might be really, really great for for a Maycon sale or something. So
Yeah.
how can I then go back to these tools and say, this is the one. This is the one I want you to focus on, not the one that I fed in the first time.
Yeah. I think there are two options. One is you can kind of start the new chain, right? So then like the AI will kind of forget that old conversation. So start a new conversation with it and feed it in that one that you liked of this is the one I want to focus on. Um, if you have like too much other contextual stuff in there, you're like, well, I can't lose all the rest of it yet. I think you can also say, okay, describe this tone for me or just what you liked about it, right? Describe this element of this email. And then you can start to use that as your prompt, right? You can start to say, I want it to be like this. So, an example is I don't consider myself a great like marketing writer and I don't consider myself like a fun writer. Like I don't know how to appropriately infuse like emojis into my writing or like where to make it funny. Like that's just not my skill set and that's okay. But for our last Opticon last year, I was writing the follow-up copy and one of the calls to action was that we were launching Opticon online and it was launching on Halloween. So I was like, all right, there's got to be something fun to put those things together. I couldn't come up with it myself, but the tool did, right? I said, write our follow-up for this event, fed it the landing page for our website, um, prompt, or call to action, drive people to Opticon Online, landing page for Opticon Online so that it can read that information. This will be, going out on Halloween. So infuse some Halloween themed messaging. It created it. It was a little too quirky. It was a little too fun. So I scaled it back. That was the human intervention. I said, okay, our brand doesn't use 12 emojis in an email. I brought it back to 3 emojis. But I think that's where you can do that. And then you learn from it too. You learn from your prompting. So you learn what works and what doesn't work in your prompting. And I would say like, keep notes of that even. Like have a notebook on your screen of like, this is a prompt I tried and I really liked how it produced. I liked the content that it produced. And then next time you have that again. You aren't starting from scratch again the next time, trying to get to kind of that right tone that you're looking for.
I've actually started to take my final result and put it back into a tool and say, this is what I ended up with.
Yeah.
And then they tell me thank you. I want them to know like this, I took what you did. I use a lot of points from you, but I really made it my own. And here's what I ended up with. So they
Yeah.
can learn.
Yeah.
Me.
You're teaching it too. Exactly. It's the
So
lifestyle.
let's jump into like responsible AI ethics, things like that. So how are we, and this is bigger than me, bigger than you, bigger than Optimizely, like how are we focusing on making sure that what the output is not biased or is, nothing's 100%
Yeah.
unbiased. What can we do with these outputs and with our training to make sure we are doing the best we absolutely can?
I think one part is it takes out what you put in. So trying to make sure that the inputs you're providing don't have bias built into them is really important. I think, again, like thinking about your tools, different tools are going to be more successful tools that have inputs from all over the world, all sorts of different, like those are going to have less bias built into them. So I think that is an important element to think about as well. Obviously, like kind of on a different angle, but like there's compliance and privacy elements that really need to be thought about. A personal anecdote, but my first job out of college was with a financial services company. So any marketing had to go through someone that had their Series 24 license to ensure it was compliant within like the finance rules and regulations for all marketers. If I was still in finance, I would make sure that any AI tools I had understood those compliance regulations that I needed to follow so that it wasn't producing things that I would never be able to put out into the world. Right. So that goes into like training your models appropriately. But if there are specific compliance elements that you need to be mindful of, use tools that understand. Don't try to use your everyday chat GPT. But I really,
Just at the end anyways.
exactly. Yeah.
You're not going to be like, okay, this is great. Even if you know it's compliant, you're
Yeah,
still going to check it.
exactly. And that's the human intervention. All of this still requires human intervention. So in my opinion, there should never be something that goes directly from AI into your messaging, right? Something shouldn't go straight from AI onto your landing page. You need to have that involvement um, to ensure that that bias is removed and that it is compliant with what you're looking for.
But on the flip side, if we're trying to figure out our tone or we're trying to create something based on what any of these tools optimizing thinks our tone is, if we're trying to train it and I'm throwing in 6, 12 months, 4 years of blog posts and content, and the tone is a little bit off, like it's not what we're doing isn't harmful. We're actually trying to learn from it. So there are some cases where it can be a little bit wrong
Mhm.
because it's not going to hurt anybody necessarily. You know what I mean? Like there's
Exactly.
different levels of risk.
Mhm.
It's very low risk us trying to put in some things. And again, we'll still check it at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot to think about. A lot we need to always have top of mind.
Yes.
How can educators, or what about other industries besides marketers? Can educators get into Optimizely? And what are some ways we can share this with other people in our lives?
Yeah. So, I mean, Optimizely is available for all sorts of different industries. We definitely have a lot of higher ed or different educators that are customers of Optimizely. But I think in general, like when we think about AI, right? It, there are different tools that are going to be built for different industries. And think about that with your purchasing to make sure that it is the right tool for your role and for your company. Optimizely is built for marketers for the most part. So that is what we have built for. And while I say, you know, find tools that are purpose built for marketers, find tools that are purpose built for your role as well, right? Like think about those elements to ensure it is the right place and the right tool because these tools are expensive. And you know, that's the reality and we want to make sure that everyone's using the right things that are going to be the most meaningful for them. And I think with AI that's even more important because of these compliance issues because it needs to understand your end users and things like that. So but I think that the beauty is there's so much. There's so much out there right now. Like there really is something for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's just an exciting time because we're doing all of these things and we're trying to dig into our use cases. But for us to get to that next point of really, building a big return, getting past some efficiencies and really building a strong ROI is going to take things like this, where we can take everything that we're doing and build this process. And I think tools like yours are really, really helpful to get us to that next big step.
Mhm.
So
Definitely.
one question: did you use AI to create your slides? Someone asked.
So, AI did not create my slides, but it did create my headshot. So
Okay,
there you go.
and then we just have like 2 minutes left. Any hardening words on Optimizely or just the future of this next phase of artificial intelligence, and how can everyone get a hold of you? There were a
Yeah.
few questions on setting up demos. So I don't know if you wanted to direct anyone to just your website or if you had a better suggestion.
Yeah, definitely. If you'd love to set up a demo, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. Emmy Witt is my name on LinkedIn. And we can help get you set up. You can also head over to our website and just, fill out a contact us form. That's also a great way to get involved with Optimizely. I think in general, there are so many tools available for marketers. Trying to find tools that do more than one thing for you is, I think, the way forward for both, reducing your total cost of ownership, ensuring that your money is being spent in the right place. We talked about marketers being asked to do more with less, and spending less on software is a great way to do that. So thinking about tools that can really own your entire marketing life cycle, that's what Optimizely is aiming to do, right? We really want to be there from ideation all the way through to your landing page, to your website, and build the best website experiences for you and your customers. So that's what we're trying to do. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It was really great to talk to you all about how we're using AI.
I mean, thank you so much. Thank you, Claire and Jada, for helping us pull this all together. Thanks to everyone for attending. Hope you learned a ton. Claire will get out the email and the recording and everything else you need to take this next step and keep going on it. And thanks, everyone. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.